Welcome to Let's Plant Houses, the podcast where we talk about some incredible families' journeys. I'm your host, Wendy Ernson, and whether you're a family member, a caregiver, or someone looking to learn, you're in the right place. So this season, I'm expanding the conversation to include adult siblings of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to the show. Their stories are deeply connected to our community, and they're just yet rarely heard. So I'm excited to share their experiences with you. So today, I'm welcoming Theresa Gutierrez to the show. And I want to thank you so much for sharing your story, your family story, and just your sibling story today. So thank you so much.
Oh, Wendy, the pleasure is mine, truly. I'm very happy to share what I've learned over the years, and I appreciate all that you have been doing through your podcast and all of the wonderful stories that your guests have openly shared. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Would you mind beginning by just telling us a little bit about your family, so now and when you grew up?
Yeah, sure. So my brother, Peter Gutierrez, he is a person with Down syndrome. And my brother is 5 years younger than me. So we were born to really the best parents that you could imagine. So supportive, so caring, so loving. And, I just think about all that they've done over the years, but especially when we were born. I was born in 1973. My brother was born in 1978. So if you think about that time period, that was a truly, transformative time.
There weren't a lot of options.
Not many at all.
And they didn't present parents with a lot of options then.
Thank you for sharing that, Wendy, because I will say that my mother and father, soon after bringing Peter home from the hospital, someone came to the door, a social worker, I'm assuming, and asked my parents, "Do you intend to keep your child?"
Yep.
Wow. Think about that.
Right.
So we've come a long way. But a little bit about my brother. He now at 46 years old, he has overcome a lot of obstacles, and he's proven people wrong in many different ways. And so looking forward to kind of unpacking that with you.
Oh, I'm super excited to hear about that. That's amazing. Okay. So you were 5 years older.
Yeah.
So did you know from the start that he was a little bit different?
Yeah, I did, actually. And, I think as a little one, that didn't really mean too much until, my school years, and when I would have friends come over and play. That's when I started to pay a little more attention and realize, oh, my brother is different.
Yeah.
And, of course, no malice was meant, but, that's when my protectiveness started to come out. I was very protective of my brother. And it's really interesting, actually, now, today, he's super protective of me and my family. So, but anyway, as a little girl, definitely started to see, okay, my brother is different. And I'm looking around and not seeing anyone else who looks like him.
Right. And that partly is because of what you just said earlier, was that parents were given choices. And I believe the choice was institutions.
Yeah, at that time it was.
So you may not have seen a lot of people with Down syndrome in the community.
Yeah, or they just were kept at home.
Right.
And no one discussed. So there was a lot of stigma. Maybe you would call it shame, embarrassment. And so, just kind of as we got older, my parents were, they took my brother to Special Olympics of Michigan, and that's when things really started to change, quite honestly.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I'm sure pretty much everybody's familiar now with Special Olympics. Back then, though, of course, it was just starting. I think it was 1968. And so when they learned that my brother was old enough to participate, my parents went all in. My dad became a coach. And
that's so great.
Yeah.
So what did your brother like to play?
You name it. Some of the sports he started playing all those years ago, like softball and soccer and basketball, he still plays today at 46 years old.
Because you can play in the Special Olympics as long as you're
Absolutely.
athletically able to, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an incredible program.
It's a wonderful program, and it's of course, a lot of your listeners understand, Special Olympics it's not just about the sport, or it's not about winning. It's about, socialization and community.
Yeah.
And growth and confidence and
It's
all
about
of that.
friendships and
Absolutely.
it really, like you said, community keeps you connected to all kinds of things.
Yeah.
I remember when I worked at an organization and they had 10 teams that were Special Olympics teams, and it was great because not only did those individuals have something to do like throughout the entire year, but they were with the same group. So they were with these people and families, and they developed these incredible friendships. And
Yes.
they'd have parties, and it's just a regular social, like any other social environment. And it was like, and the thing is that here, a lot of those go away after the schools. So once you
Yes.
leave the schools, you don't have that environment. So it's so magical
Yeah.
that your brother found this community.
Well, and he's not the only one who has benefited. Mm-hmm. My
That's right.
parents have developed a huge network, a circle of friends. They go to each other to ask questions, share things that they've learned. It's been a benefit to me, of course, over the years then. As I got older, I became a coach, which quickly learned, by the way, that coaching your younger brother in Special Olympics doesn't always work out. So I went to a different
No
team.
failure there. Yeah, just you're right. Different team just might be
Different
better.
team, yeah. And then, of course, being a coach and then moving into more of like a management team member for Special Olympics, specifically for Area 23 here in Michigan, that helped me develop leadership skills and things like that. But yes, it's been truly life-changing for our entire family. And so, again, he still participates. I'm still deeply involved. And through that community, we've been exposed to many other organizations and many other people. So it's been a real blessing.
It sounds like it's just such a supportive community, which often when you have a child with special needs, you kind of feel alone. But it sounds like your parents found this incredible community, which has kind of wrapped itself around you.
That was an inflection point, Wendy,
Yeah.
Truly finding that organization. I would imagine, well, I've never specifically asked them this question, but you use the word alone. I think there was some loneliness, some fear.
Making that decision when everybody's telling you make a different decision when your child's so young.
Yeah. And people telling them, this is as far as your son is going to go and no further. This is how long your son is going to live.
Right.
Right? And so I'm hearing these things, and I'm, kind of just letting that sink in a little bit. And maybe that's where, my protectiveness started to really come out. But watching my parents manage through all of this and not take no for an answer.
Right.
And so where that has led him, it has just been truly fun to watch, So graduating from Churchill High School, graduating from the Skill Center after that, doing a little side gig with my dad after he retired from Ford Motor Company, and so they became best pals out on the road doing deliveries and having their little, routine together.
Yeah.
That was really fun to watch. And then
still being a tremendous athlete in the Special Olympics program.
yes. So he continues to keep us on our toes, surprise us, bring us joy.
Yeah. Love that. So I guess you've probably talked a bit about your family dynamic, but I was curious, what are some challenges that you faced growing up with a sibling with special needs?
Yeah.
Or did you face any?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think families experience challenges no matter what.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the challenges I would say is, and this is just me and how I'm kind of made up, there was almost this feeling of I I'm getting the benefit of, like, I get to go to college, for example. My parents are paying for me to go away to school, and my brother doesn't get to.
Like maybe a little bit of guilt.
There's some guilt.
Yeah.
And I call that a challenge, but it was guilt, right? Like, I had to really overcome that, especially when, and my brother made it easy for me. He loved that I went away to Kalamazoo College and was always like my biggest cheerleader when I'm out there. I ran cross country. He went to every single cross country race. It didn't matter where it was, out of state. There's my brother, there's my mom, my dad, cheering for me on the sidelines. I mean, who goes to cross country meets in the winter kind of weather, in Michigan, and get so excited like that? So he made it a lot easier for me to feel like, okay, this is all right, Theresa. You need to do this. Yeah. This is your calling. You go out and do it. But that was initially, kind of a challenge that I had to overcome in my own mind, right? Mm-hmm. Other challenges, communication. So for my brother, he's, I guess you would say, the moderate range.
Okay.
With his disability. And so his language skills, not everyone can understand him. And so we would have folks come over, outside of school and try to work with him.
Like a speech therapist.
Yeah. And also, just he can be quite stubborn. I have learned over the years in talking to other siblings, talking to other family members, that actually is kind of a common characteristic.
Sure.
Is stubbornness. And so, when there's a little bit of angst in the household, that kind of affects the whole family. And I understand, it was him acting out like, hey, how come you don't understand me? So, and the other thing that we've really come to realize and appreciate about Peter is that he's actually a pretty independent person. And he's grown more and more independent, which is awesome to witness. And that, too, has its challenges because, there aren't a ton of options available for him, even though he really wants to be a lot more independent than he is today.
Like, what does he want to do differently?
Well, for sure, he wants to probably live in his own place. And we've tried that one time. My parents did try it. It lasted for a couple of years.
Okay.
They actually owned a home that was right next door, and they found someone else to live with him who was at, similar kind of intellectual ability.
So roommate?
He had a roommate, and it lasted for a couple of years. They went through a lot of caregivers.
Yep.
A lot. And so that was, that became...
it becomes a full-time job.
It was. And my dad is 87.
Yeah.
My mom's 79.
Yeah.
They can't do this forever. So in the end, his roommate ended up moving out. And so, financially, they just decided to sell the home. And so he moved back in. And that's really when we started to see that independent streak. He's continually, kind of advocating for himself.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Even though he doesn't know that word, and he doesn't know exactly what he's doing, he's advocating for himself.
Okay.
He wants to be more independent, and so I think that's where we're at right now.
Trying to figure out what the next step is.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing that he wants to do that, and I'm sure that there are options, but it's just there's a legwork there.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have to do a lot of investigation and. Yes, the caregiving thing since COVID has been exceptionally challenging.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. It's only, I know it was hard before, but then it made it even more difficult because there's just less people that are available or willing to work for the amount of money that the government commits to that.
Yeah.
So it's just a very small pool of people.
Yeah, and then really feeling that sense of trust.
Yeah, because they're working with vulnerable people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You hear stories, and
Yep,
so you don't want that to happen to your own family member.
No, but I can understand your challenge. You're not alone. I mean, there's a lot of people right now trying to figure out the housing situation. I'm hopeful that we're going to see something different. But that's a whole nother conversation.
It is, isn't
it? we could have a whole housing conversation on this show another time for sure. So it sounds like right now he's an adult, but he's living at your parents' while they're trying to figure out the next steps.
Yes.
And so they're probably his guardians right now. And so you guys are but they're working. They're probably working with you.
We talk about it.
Yeah.
And at this point, the options include my brother could move into. There's the Community Opportunity Center. They actually have a home in downtown Plymouth where I live.
And they have availability? That's amazing.
Well, that I'm not sure of, but I'm just saying that's one option we're looking at. I from what I understand, they tend to have a bit of a waiting list at the house in Plymouth. I don't know about the house in Livonia, but it would be ideal if he moved in to the Plymouth house since it would be less than a mile away.
Yeah.
We've talked about another option being that my brother moves in with me and my husband. Ryan, my spouse, is amazing. Peter adores him, so that definitely helps. And so, but interestingly, my parents say in response to that suggestion, we don't want your brother to be a burden to you, which just blows my mind because I've never once thought about my brother as being a burden. But, this is how they're thinking, and I respect their thinking, and I remind them that he's my brother, I love him, and that option is not off the table.
Right. But I can see as a parent what they're saying just because your dynamic will change living together.
Yeah.
So and right now you have this amazing, loving, connected relationship that your parents would love for that to continue. And it sounds like your brother really wants to live on, not live on his own, but live supported.
Yeah.
So I can see why they're embracing that as well.
Yeah. I see their side totally.
But I'm sure they're grateful that all the options are on the table.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had mentioned that you talked to other siblings like you. So I was curious. So what kind of support or resource have you found most helpful for siblings of individuals with special needs?
Yeah. Well, again, I go back to Special Olympics.
Sure.
It's sort of the starting point. And I would say, though, about a year ago, a colleague of mine I used to work with, I never knew he had a sister with Down syndrome.
Oh, okay.
And we're connected on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, and so he saw my posts about my brother, and so he and his wife reached out, and this was kind of in the middle of the pandemic.
Okay.
And his sister was, really struggling, and just as my brother was too. When you're being told you can't go do your favorite activities and you can't be around your favorite people and you do not understand why you have to wear this mask on your face. It was a very confusing time and very frustrating. Yeah. And so we saw behavioral changes, and siblings and other people I was talking to expressed the same observations. And so, we connected through social media and met up at one point as well, and kind of, just talked about the different resources that they had found, and actually like kind of more national type resources, but locally, the ARC is a wonderful resource, and that's like the next place that I point to.
Yeah.
That we're very familiar with. And then community living services, another great resource.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense because they're helping you to figure out like the steps. So whether that be housing, transportation, activities, all the things that you were talking about before.
Yep.
So I was curious if you could share a story about a time when you felt especially proud of your brother, Peter.
Oh my gosh. How much time do we
I was
have?
going to say, maybe you're going to pick one, though.
Can I say a couple?
We'll start with whatever you want to start with.
Well, I'll just share that again, this is a tribute to my parents and how just over time, they didn't hold us back. They didn't hold my brother back. We traveled internationally when he was like 9, 10, 11 years old, going to places like Spain and Germany. And then even when I was in college and I did my study abroad, my brother, my family, they came out to visit me in South America. We went to the Galapagos Islands. And I mean, he's a great traveler. He loves to explore. And so one thing that my parents did, I was so proud of him. This was back in 2002, so he was kind of young.
Yeah.
And it was World Youth Day, 2002, taking place in Toronto, Canada. They had my brother go with the local youth group in our church, and he went with them. My parents stayed home.
Wow.
And they let him go off and have the experience of a lifetime at World Youth Day.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And he did so well, and all the kids came back hugging and high-fiving.
They're like best friends now.
Exactly. So super proud of him to do that, to be such a great traveler.
And he's like a huge influence on others, right? Because he obviously had so much joy in that experience. He probably brought that to the rest of the group as well.
He did. And so I do have one other really quick story,
please do.
international travel related. So when we went to Dublin, Ireland to celebrate my father's 80th birthday, and we're in a pretty famous pub in Dublin, and it's my family and I and Ryan, my husband, and my brother he went off to find the restroom. And this pub is huge. It's packed full of people having a great time. And we noticed out of the corner of our eyes there was a group of 4 people kind of intently watching.
Okay.
And when my brother came back after he found the restroom on his own, the one couple came up specifically to my mom and dad, and they said, "We are just amazed by your son." And my parents like, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Well, we have a little girl back home. They're from the UK.
Okay.
And we have a little girl. She's just a couple years old. She has Down syndrome. And we see how your son is so independent. It gives us hope." And then we spent the next couple of hours just, talking, having a great time, sharing.
amazing.
And my mom reassuring this young couple, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's really going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's not without its challenges, but your daughter is going to be okay.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. And it was because of my brother showing his independence.
That's so incredible.
Yeah.
How did you feel in that moment?
So proud.
Yeah, right?
And excited. And yeah, just, it just made me realize, I'd learned this a long time ago in some leadership development program. Understand the shadow that you cast, or understand that other people are watching you. And so, appreciate and honor that. And so always try to, be strong, do the right thing, because you never really do know who's watching you. And in that case, this family, we were there all at the right moment, and they're watching.
There, yeah, and you're just there.
We're just having a good time.
Right, you're just enjoying living your lives.
Yeah.
And you're actually having an impression on someone. You're creating this moment that they probably never forgot either.
Oh, no. And, of course, we're connected on Facebook. And
So that's all curious. So this was, you said, no, this was just a few years ago.
It was 7 years ago.
So I wonder how their daughter's doing.
She is thriving.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she really is.
And if you give people hope like that, then they're like, you know what? I'm not saying it's not hard, like you said, it's not without its challenges, but hope can help so many things.
Absolutely.
Helps to make those choices easier to make. It helps you to know that just doing a little more and a little more works. Like, because you know that you actually have a place to go.
Absolutely.
How special.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you for sharing that. So you said a little bit about how you're in Special Olympics.
Yes.
And you're involved in some other organizations.
Yeah.
So is that how you're sharing what you've learned with others and then also working with other siblings?
those are ways. And I also more recently have been involved, and I know you've had a prior guest who is from My Work Matters.
Yeah.
And so I'm on the advisory committee for their board.
So tell us just a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's been a great experience bringing together people from other local companies to advise the board for My Work Matters on, just training and development of their employment ambassadors who go out into the community, talk to different business leaders.
So for listeners who don't remember,
Yeah.
My Work Matters employs people with disabilities here in our local communities.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Theresa.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and they work at the Anastasia and Katie's coffee shop.
Which is so great. That place
Isn't
is
it?
So, yes.
The
love
best
that place.
lattes.
Right?
We provide our guidance and advice on future programming. So that's just one way that I have found, to kind of help advocate and educate and bring community together.
I know they're super grateful to have you be a part of the organization because you lend such great knowledge and
thank you.
expertise. Because it's not like, just so you all know, it's not just that Theresa is a sibling and has this lived experience, which alone is tremendous. But you also have all this knowledge, having worked in the sector, because you work in HR, right? You have
Yes.
a deep industry experience there. So they are super fortunate to have you on that advisory board. So it's amazing you do that.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun.
And that's important too, right?
Yes.
We should continue to have fun.
Yes.
I guess the last thing I'll ask you is for parents and adult siblings on this journey, what advice might you give them?
I'm going to use a word that I think I probably have used several times, and it's just around have faith and trust in the community. And your community can be as big or as small as you want it to be. But, through openness and conversation with others, it's amazing what you can learn and how much people want to give back or participate. I've seen it with my own family members. And, just looking back, having this opportunity to speak with you today, doing all this reflection on how far we've come and how much has changed and evolved since my brother and I were born. And
It's incredible,
It's
really.
incredible and hopeful. And I know we still have a ways to go, but, this happened. We learned along the way because we weren't just in this vacuum. We ignored the stigma. We got past those feelings of whether it was shame or embarrassment, and we just reached out to others and built this big community. So really, just take part in the community. You'll be pleasantly surprised.
I can't add to that, so thank you. That was a great answer.
Thanks, Wendy.
So thank you so much for being here today, Theresa. This was, again, super inspirational and, again, a unique perspective that totally deserves to be heard. So thank you so much for sharing it. And for those of you listening in, thank you again for joining us today. I also hope you'll consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing this podcast with others who might find it meaningful. And please join us next time on Let's Plant Houses. Take care.